All right, so in this lesson, we're going to build the controller for our tic-tac-toe game. So again, we're going to be wiring things together, so we need to refer back to our view. We also are going to have to refer to our model and how to listen to the different buttons that we have, because we don't just have one, but we have the 10 here. So let's get going. So first thing is that we should realize is that in the controller, that every button press that we do is going to affect both the model and the view. All right, big point here. So in terms of setup, well, when we start things off here, we're going to have to make an instance of the model so it can control things or record the data for us. And we're going to have to capture our buttons, add the listeners, all the things that you might expect to do. When you click a tic-tac-toe button, all right, then it does two things, right? First of all, it's going to say, hey, model, I press this space, right? And the model is going to keep track of which spaces have X's and O's. And then we're going to ask the model to do an update on our buttons. We're going to say, hey, go ahead and give me the text that I should have that I should display on these, and what the game state is, and then we can set those in the view. Finally, for the new game button, it just simply needs to tell the game to reset. And of course, since it's reset, it's going to have to tell the view to go ahead and to change the text that shows up everywhere. Okay, so pretty decent. So let's start off with a setup. So we're going to need an instance of the model and to capture things. All right, so I'm going to go up into my job, into main activity. So let's see, an instance of the model. Model is something that's going to have to be used in multiple methods. I'm going to have onCreate, and then I'm going to also have an onClick out here. So I want to set that up here. So private, and this is going to be an instance of the tic-tac-toe game. So tic-tac-toe game, I'm going to call it my game, so mGame. And I can just right here, if I want, let it be a new tic-tac-toe game. And again, this takes a context. So here, I could just pass in this, which is my current activity. So that's good. So there's my instance of the game. And if I really wanted to, well, it's already going to be set here. I could do a reset game, but it should be anyway. All right, what else do I need? I need to capture the different things. So I have the text for the game state. All right, and again, each of these things are going to be referred to in multiple places, so I'm going to make them fields. So text view. And I'm just going to call this my game state text view. And we'll just leave that, I guess, as there. And then I have some buttons. So I'm going to have, let's see, so private, oops. So in a 2D array of buttons. So button, my tic-tac-toe buttons. And if I wanted to put the actual the game state button out here, I could. It turns out that I'm not going to need to refer to that in multiple places, so I could probably, I'm just going to declare it inside. So here I'm going to have a button for the for the new game button, new game button, and this guy again I'm going to be calling find view by ID, so I'm going to have to cast it. Find view by ID, r.id new game button. All right, let's see, and I'm going to need to set a listener on this guy. So new game button dot set on click listener, and I'm going to use a little bit different paradigm this time. Like I said, I'm gonna set it to be this. All right. Now that, of course, it's going to complain because this is the main activity, and main activity isn't an on click listener yet. So let's go ahead and make that happen. And you can click on it here, or if you get a little error over here, it'll ask you what you want to do, and we want to let main activity implement the onClick listener interface, and it'll ask you, hey, do you even want the onClick? So absolutely, let's do it. And we see that it will it'll go ahead and put in the interface and the methods that it needs to implement that interface. Great. So we've got that for the new game button. What else do we need to do? We need to capture the text view. All right, so up here, so my game state text view, and this was a field. I want to call find view by ID on this guy. So we'll cast it, r dot id dot and message text. There we go. And it looks like I messed this up right here. It looks like my capitalization isn't correct. I'm going to fix it right now so we can do a refactor. Refactor rename is Alt-Shift-R in Android. Get to know it, it's your friend. So Alt-Shift-R, click on this guy, and then I can change this T to make it capital, and it will capitalize it up above. And again, you can see the effect that it has up here. Ooh, love that. All right, enter. Looks great. And let's see, I need to capture the other buttons as well. So let's do that. So button, we've already declared it. So this is the my tic-tac-toe buttons. So let's go ahead and actually first of all instantiate the 2D array. So this is a new 2D array of buttons like that, and it's going to be 3 by 3. But if you remember, the tic-tac-toe game has constants for these. So number of rows comes first, and then the number of columns. All right, and now we've got to capture each one. Now, there's a couple different ways of doing this. If you wanted to hard code them in, you could say, hey, button 00 is find view by ID, r.id dot button 00. All right, and just go ahead and, it wouldn't be very hard to do because they all match up here. And honestly, I have no issues with you doing that. It's going to be 3 by 3, so this is going to be, a quick 9 copy and paste. There is something that feels a little bit weird about doing that, since we might want to, what we really want to do is loop over these buttons. So let's sort of keep this guy here, but rather let's do a for loop. Okay, so for loop. So I'm going to have my row starts at 0, row is less than my game, so tic-tac-toe game dot numRows, row plus plus. Same thing for the columns, so int column equals 0, columns less than tic-tac-toe game dot numColumns, and we do col plus plus. And what we want to do here is to capture that one. So my tic-tac-toe buttons, row, column equals cast to a button, find view by ID. And the only question is then, of course, what goes in here, because so far we've just been hard coding in these guys. So there is a way to do that. You can create them programmatically. So I'm going to do that right now. So int, and I call it what I want. Just call it, I guess, ID for now. And the way that I do that is to ask my resources for one. So get resources, you notice that there's a get identifier, and it takes the name. So this is going to be like button 00 or so on. It's a type, because you can actually do you can build different kind of resources this way, or identifiers to different kind of resources. And then the last one is, can't really see it here, but it's a package name. So let's go ahead and do this. So get identifier. So the first one is going to be button, row, column. And I'm just going to concatenate those guys all together right there. So when row and column are 0, it's going to give me button 00 as a string. The second thing is that I want it to be an ID, and we're just going to give it the string ID. There's probably a constant for that, but don't know it right now. And the last one is that we want the package name. So if we start typing get, that's the first one that comes up in the completion. So get package name. All right, and then we just made an ID that we can then immediately pass in. So pretty good. We'll check in a bit to see that it works, but it should be okay. While we also have our loop here, we can also set the listeners on each button. So I'm going to do the same thing. So go ahead and take this guy and set an on-click listener on it, and we'll have, once again, the activity will respond. All right, so we're deferring a lot of this stuff to the activity. Let's get caught up in our slides. So we see, once again, we captured the views here. We had 3 views to capture. Our text view, the new game button itself, and then within the loop here, we captured our tic-tac-toe buttons. And we did that by using the neat little get identifier trick. Kind of an obscure thing. Most of the time I don't use it, but there's cases like this that it turns out to be really handy. And then what we did next was we set our own click listeners. So again, just for the buttons, so for the new game button and then for our other buttons. And again, we're using a style here where we're going to have the activity be the listener. So in our code, I have an on click to write. And if we think about what's going on here, each of these views, the way that I'm going to distinguish them from each other is I'm going to use the ID. All right, so I can check to see the ID of what I have, whether it matches, one of the IDs that I was already given. So you can think about how this could look, right? You could imagine like an if or a switch statement or something like that on the ID that's going to check, hey, was it the new game button? Then reset the game. Hey, was it button 00? Then press the button at location 00, and so on. And that's, again, not too bad. Kind of matches up with our first thoughts about how to capture those buttons. But since we have them all, we can do better. We can actually put them in a loop. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, just handle the new game button as a special case. So I'm going to ask if the view that was passed in, if its ID double equals, and if I had actually put this guy as a field, I could have called getID, but I don't really need it. I could just, since there's only one of these guys, I could just say r.id .newGameButton. Okay. And if that's the case, then we'll go ahead and we'll reset the game. So they want a new game, so my game dot reset game right there, like so. And what I should probably do is I should probably reset the text on the game state. So let's go ahead and do that. So my game state text view dot set text, and that's going to be something from the game. So my game dot, and there's a method here to get the string for the game state. All right, so we'll go ahead and pass that in. And if I were to try to run the game right now, it would listen for things, and if I hit reset, it would go back to nothing. But of course, it's not showing X's and O's right now anyway. We still need to make that happen. So let's do that next. What I want to be able to do is to loop over the rows and columns of the array again. So I'm just going to grab, shamelessly copy and paste from up above, and set this guy up so that we can loop over the rows and columns. And then I'm going to need if statement in here. So we'll say if the ID, right? So if the ID that's of the view that was clicked, if that equals the ID of my button. Now I'm looping over the rows and columns, so I could say my tic-tac-toe buttons at row and column, and I can call get ID on this. Because again, remember what we did is we did find view by ID. So obviously this guy has an ID now. So if that's the case, we want to check that it's clicked. Now for the sake of debugging here, I want to show you a little trick. We haven't done this yet, but we want to log our button presses. And this is a really good debug sort of hint for you, because there's not really a console in Java, right? So if you want to get messages, you want to log them to your IDE. So we'll go ahead and we'll do log dot, and there's different levels. You can do errors. Log.e is an error. This is just a debug, and it's going to take a tag and then a message. We'll see in a minute that the tag is what we're going to use to search. So I'm just going to use TTT here. If I were going to be putting in a lot of logs, I would actually set up a constant for this that I could use all over the place. But here we'll just say button pressed at, and we'll say row and a space and then a column. All right, so that whole thing is my message there. And what I want to do, let's close this guy up so that it compiles, and then I want to run it and see what I get. Okay, so I ran the program, and I want to click a button. So I clicked up here, and it showed something somewhere. If I want to find that easily, then I actually want to filter my log messages, because there's a whole bunch of messages here, right? It's just streaming stuff through here. So I'm going to grab TTT, right? And it says that the button was pressed. I had actually pressed another one before that. So let's check this out. So there's 02, there's 22, there's 20, 11's in the middle. There it is. And let's see, I don't know that we logged the new game button, so so that shouldn't show up down here. But now that we know that we get button presses are pretty sweet. Okay, so let's go ahead and do something with this. So if we pressed it, oh, we need to tell our model what to do there. All right, so hey game, I just pressed button at a certain location here, at that row and column. So let's go ahead and tell it that. And then if we were actually to observe the game state, it should be changing. The way that we're going to observe it is we're going to do an update. Now one might say that right in here we should go ahead and set the text on the buttons. It turns out that we want to set the text on all the buttons so that it works. So let's go ahead and do this. So outside of the if statement, but within here, I'm going to say, hey buttons, go ahead and let's see. So buttons, row and column. I want to set the text on the button. That's the first time we've done this, but any view you can set its text on. So we'll do set text, and we need to give it the text that we want. And again, that's going to come from the game. The game will give me a string for a button at a certain location. So we'll go ahead and do that. And that should wrap up the game. Okay, so it launched. Let's check here. So there we go. So when I clicked it, it pressed a button at a location. So again, every click is going to detect which one of these guys were clicked, and it's going to update all the buttons, and it's going to update the game state text view. So when I click, it's telling the model that there's a different game state, and when I ask it for its text, it gives me the proper one here. So let's finish playing the game here. So let's see, X. O blocks, X blocks, O blocks, X tries to get greedy. Oh, and then O is going to sneak in with a win. Woo! Okay, so O wins right here. Let's see if the new game works. So new game, resets it, says it's X's turn again. Pretty sweet. So we've got a working game here. If you're debugging or whatever, again, checking out a log is a helpful thing. Sometimes I'll find that I put together some buttons, and I put in a log, and a button doesn't respond. What's going on? So if the logs don't even show up, then usually what's happened is I messed up in setting the listener, and I probably forgot to do that. All right, so logs are good to have around. So let's get the slides caught up here. So again, we used IDs to figure out what was being pressed. Since we hadn't captured the new game button, we just referred to it as the single ID from the resource file. All the other guys we had captured, and they had IDs, so we just looped over them here. And then we did the log messages, so that was cool. And then again, just setting our filter right here is kind of nice, and then it will just give us what we want. There's a check mark right here if you want to go back to sort of all output. And you're going to want to do that pretty frequently anyway, so when you go back, that'll let you know if you had any null pointer exceptions or other errors in your program. That's all we got for you for this lesson. All right, next time we go into the lab. See you later.